The Witch and the Monk. Hands clasped and head bowed, a monk was wandering in the woods. It was a mild autumn afternoon. Shafts of soft sunlight shone through the branches of the trees. The wood was silent but for the twitter of birds. The monk stopped to contemplate the world around him. "God is truly wonderful," he thought, "to create such beauty. The trees and the birds in the sky itself, and the blessed sun, which gives light and warmth to all." Then he knelt down to pray. He took out a set of rosary beads from his purse. The beads had been carved from wood, and the cross fashioned from two pieces of metal, on which was engraved the motto, Dominus Providebit, the Lord will provide, a phrase that gave him comfort and strength in times when the vow of poverty he had taken meant that he had to endure hardship. He closed his eyes and recited his prayers. He was deep in prayer when something began to trouble him. He tried to ignore it, but it did not go away. He began to see hideous faces in his mind's eye, faces of demons and monsters that seemed to be tormenting him. He prayed even more fervently, but the faces did not go away. When he thought he could bear no more, he opened his eyes. He noticed he was perspiring quite heavily. He looked up towards heaven. "Do you wish to say something to me, God? Why do you send me such terrible visions?" He was about to start praying again, when he heard a voice behind him.
"Help an old lady, would you, brother?"
The monk turned around.
"I have lost my grandchild. I was walking with him in the wood when he ran off to catch a hare. I am old, as you can see. I could not run after him."
The woman was dressed in rags and had canvas sacks for shoes. She had a bonnet on her head, and in her hand she carried a long, roughly hewn wooden stick. The monk looked at her. She was extremely old and ugly to look at. But the monk did not want to think these thoughts, because he was taught that all of God's creatures are beautiful. "I will help you," said the monk, "and with God's help, we will find him."
"My poor grandchild, where could he be?"
The woman placed her head in her hands and sobbed. "Woman," said the monk, "do not cry. God takes care of all his creatures." He placed a hand on the woman's shoulder to comfort her. The woman raised her head and examined the monk's face closely. The monk trembled, though he did not know why.
"Come with me," said the woman. "I think I know where he might be."
"Lead the way," replied the monk, "and may God go with us." The woman spat on the ground, much to the monk's surprise. They walked for some time, deeper and deeper into the woods. The monk felt a strange sense of foreboding. Suddenly, the woman stopped.
"It is getting dark. The night is not the time to be out in the woods. We should find shelter."
"I am afraid we will not find shelter here. There are no dwellings in this part of the wood."
"There is one dwelling," said the woman. "My house is not far."
"But your grandchild?"
"We have little chance of finding him now," she interrupted. "It is too dark. If the wolves have not eaten him, we shall find him tomorrow. We cannot put ourselves in danger. Take shelter in my house for the night."
"If you say so," said the monk, "I will accept your kindness." They wandered deeper still into the woods, until they came upon an opening where there was an old, dilapidated house. Its roof had fallen in places, and the walls were overgrown with vines. Sinister-looking cats lurked around the doorway. They arched their backs and their hair stood on end when they saw the woman come near. The monk gave a start.
"Do not worry. They are hungry, that is all. Won't you come inside?"
The monk hesitated. The house looked ominous, but he thought walking back through the woods more dangerous. So he went inside. The house was dimly lit by candles. There was a putrid smell in the air. Something rancid was bubbling away on the stove. There was a long stone table in the kitchen, on which there were carcasses of animals from the woods. Some had had their eyes removed, others their fur, and others were intact except for their claws. It was a strange and disturbing sight. On a wall there was a collection of old books. Some of them were bound in black cloth, others were bound in purple velvet and had strange markings on the spine. And there was one book that was larger than all the others. It was bound in red leather and had no writing on the spine at all. The monk was curious and was about to remove it from the shelf when the woman spoke.
"Would you like some tea?"
The monk looked at all the strange herbs and spices and powders and liquids that were in jars on shelves in the kitchen. "No, thank you."
"We have walked far. I have a tea that will give you strength."
The monk thought for a moment. "Just a little, thanks." The woman took some spices from a jar, placed them into a cup, and began to boil some water. When her back was turned, the monk took the large red book from the shelf. He opened it, and what he read made his blood turn cold. Principles of Witchcraft. A witch, he thought. She is up to some mischief.
"Please sit down,"
said the woman, the cup of hot tea in her hand. The monk quickly returned the book to its place on the shelf and reached for his purse. He drew out the rosary beads and clutched them tightly. "I would rather stand."
"What beautiful rosary beads you have. May I see them?"
"You may not." The woman looked at him menacingly.
"Drink your tea."
"I am not thirsty." The woman threw the cup of hot liquid at him. The monk managed to avoid being hit. He heard the cup shatter behind him. "You are a witch! I am a fool for listening to you." She approached him, with her fist clenched. "What do you want from me?"
"Beard and bowels of a holy man. Beard and bowels for my brew."
The monk held out the metal cross in front of him. "Come no closer." She took no notice of his warning.
"Beard and bowels of a holy man. Beard and bowels for my brew."
The monk held the cross so tightly that the metal cut into his hand. "Stay back, evil woman." The witch raised her fist. The monk trembled all over. "I will not strike you, though you will strike me. Yet I will not strike a woman, if woman you are." The witch held up her fist to his face, but instead of striking him, she opened her hand to reveal a bright yellow powder. She blew it in his face, and within moments he had lost consciousness. The pain of his beard being torn from his face made him come to. He tried to get up, but found that he was tied down. He was lying on the stone table on which had seen the abused carcasses of his fellow creatures of the wood. He saw his rosary beads hanging on a nail on the wall. "What are you going to do to me?" The witch bent over him.
"I must tear out your beard and take out your bowels."
Her breath smelled like vapors from hell. "God has mercy on those who show mercy. It is not too late to repent."
"I care nothing for God,"
she screamed, and she tore at his beard again. The monk howled in pain. "Your punishment will come in the life hereafter. God's justice is swift."
"I have no need of the life hereafter. My brew will make me immortal."
"Repent now, before it is too late." The witch ignored him and tore at his beard again. "Oh, God!" screamed the monk.
"Silence! You will wake my cats."
The witch continued to tear out his beard until there was nothing left. The monk fell into a stupor. The witch threw the hairs from the monk's beard into the bubbling pot. The liquid hissed and fizzled. Then she procured a large, blunt knife from a drawer. She made a rent in the monk's habit and tore it in two with her gnarled, bony hands.
"Any last requests?"
she said, with a sinister smile. The monk thought quickly. "I would like to say the rosary before I die." The witch scoffed at him. "Surely you will grant me this request. I am soon to die, but you will live for eternity."
"That is true. I have time. Your last request is granted."
"I would like my rosary beads." She took the rosary beads from the nail and tossed them on the monk's chest. "Place them in my hands, please." The witch took them and spat on them. Then she placed them in the monk's hand.
"Anything else?"
she asked sarcastically. "That will do." replied the monk. "Thank you."
"Say your prayers, priest. I will visit my sisters in witchcraft, who tonight are at a coven even deeper in the woods. When I return, I will take out your bowels."
The witch laughed. Her strident cackle pierced the monk's ears and rang throughout the wood. She collected her walking stick, hobbled outside, and closed the door. A whoosh of air was heard, followed by a deep silence. The monk knew he was now alone. Taking firm hold of the cross, he began to rub it with the strength he had left against one of the ropes that tied him down. One by one, the fibers of the rope snapped until the whole rope had broken. With one arm free, he released himself from his bonds and ran for his life. Under the cover of darkness, 3 nights later, a row of torches could be seen moving through the woods, the faces of the figures who carried them obscured by the hoods of their cloaks. The moonlight reflected back from the metal crosses they wore around their necks. The hunt for the witch had begun.